My buddy Mark and I had been planning the World Cup trip for months. We weren't exactly die-hard soccer fans, but any excuse to get out of town and sit in a packed stadium felt like reason enough to book the tickets. We got there early, found our seats and settled in. The energy was insane. Tens of thousands of people were crammed into one space, all buzzing off the same thing. By kickoff, I was already on my third beer and feeling pretty great about the whole decision, when my eyes fell on this guy sitting about 6 rows ahead of us and a few seats to the left. I noticed him only because he was the only person in that entire section not watching the game. While everyone else was angled toward the pitch and reacting to the ball, he was turned completely around in his seat, facing back into the crowd and eyeing me up. At first, I brushed it off, figuring he might be looking for somebody, but he didn't look like he was scanning around. He was still as a statue, staring directly at me without any of the restless shifting a person does when they're searching for a friend. I looked away and told myself I was imagining it. A few minutes passed. When I looked back, he was still staring. We locked eyes and he grinned at me, sticking his tongue out. It was enough to make my skin crawl. Giggling at my scrunched up nose, he opened his mouth even wider, and I felt my stomach drop. The guy didn't have a single tooth. His gums were bare and smooth, like he'd never had any teeth to begin with. His lips were stretched into this massive, creepy grin that looked completely wrong, and his tongue was crazy long, hanging way past his chin and brushing against his jawline. He locked eyes with me again, gave a little head tilt, and started moving that insane tongue, doing this weird panting thing like a dog in the summer heat. I grabbed Mark's arm and pointed. "Dude, look, there's this weirdo guy 6 rows down." Mark took a quick peek, maybe 3 seconds, and shrugged. "Nah, I don't see anything strange." He turned back to the game. I told him to look again, specifically at the guy who wasn't watching the match and was turned around in his seat. Mark looked again, shrugged, and said there were like 40,000 people here and half of them probably weren't watching the game either. The stadium erupted as the team scored and the whole place went nuts. Banners went up, confetti flew, and everyone was screaming and cheering. I tried to find the weirdo through the mess of high fives and hugs, but couldn't see him. Eventually, I figured I was just psyching myself out and decided to enjoy the moment with everyone else. When the noise settled and everyone sat back down, the man was closer. He jumped 4 rows and was sitting in a spot he definitely had not been in before. My hand tightened on my cup. As time progressed, it kept happening. Every goal stare, every eruption where the crowd pulled my attention to the pitch for 3 seconds. He moved. By halftime, he was close enough that I could see him clearly. The tongue was still out and moving. His eyes hadn't blinked once in the entire time I'd been watching him. He was surrounded by normal people eating nachos and checking their phones, and not a single one of them reacted to him. I leaned over and asked the guy sitting next to me if he knew him. He looked at me, glanced at the seat beside him, and asked if I was high or something. I was losing my mind. When the second half started, he was 3 seats over, right in my row. My heart started hammering, and I was barely breathing. I could actually hear his soft, steady panting, like someone breathing heavily in a closet. I practically clawed at Mark's arm and kept saying his name until he finally turned. "What the fuck, dude? There's this really weird guy 3 seats over." "The seats are empty. There's no one there, Jason." But he was. The man leaned forward and shoved that tongue in, making it even longer than I'd seen yet. He let out this little awful giggle at me freaking out and whistled. He then proceeded to swing his tongue around like a snake. It crawled up slowly, wrapping around his cheek, sliding right up towards his eye. Then pulling back and doing the whole gross thing over and over. I was horrified. Suddenly, both ends of his tongue shot out at the same time and started coiling up over his face. It looked like it was tightening, and he was choking. I closed my eyes and started screaming my head off. I only knew I was doing it because Mark was suddenly shaking me by the shoulders, and the whole section went dead quiet. Someone nearby even shouted to ask if I was having a seizure. "Jason, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Mark was shaking me. I opened my eyes and pointed to the seat, but it was empty. My mouth dried up. We sat there for the rest of the second half, and I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in the match. I was watching that seat. The people around it went back to the game like nothing had happened, like they'd been doing the entire time. didn't say much on the way back to the hotel. I could tell he didn't know whether to be worried or chalk it up to too much beer. Later, I checked the seating chart for that section. The seat he ended up in showed up as unsold in the game records. Seriously, no one was supposed to be sitting there. I've told this story a bunch since then. I can always see the moment on people's faces when they decide I must have imagined the whole thing. Maybe I did, but I honestly don't know what's scarier. A guy with no teeth and that crazy tongue showing up at a packed stadium where only I could see him. Or the thought that whatever that thing was, it was sitting 3 seats away, and I was the only one it was focused on. It's just been Noah and me since his dad passed in a car accident when Noah was 3. I really tried to be both mom and dad, but between working 3 jobs just to get by in LA and keeping up with the school, I barely had any time to spend with him. So, when the Soccer World Cup semi-final came to town, I jumped on those tickets. It was the week of Noah's 8th birthday, so I figured this would be the ultimate surprise for him as well. My kid's been obsessed with soccer since he was 4. Ever since his uncle put a game on and Noah sat there 6 inches from the screen for the full 90 minutes without even blinking. The morning we left for SoFi, he was up before 6. He had his jersey on and even made me take a bunch of photos of him in front of the car before we even left the driveway. Our seats weren't exactly front row, but we didn't care. Noah spent pretty much the whole first half standing on his chair so we could see better. Honestly, watching him was way more entertaining than the actual game. He was totally locked in, grabbing my arm every time someone almost scored, calling out every player by name and rambling on about their plays like a mini-coach. By the time halftime rolled around, we were both starving. The line at the nearest concession stand was already snaking back into the aisle. I told him I was going to quickly run and grab something, that he needed to stay in his seat. Do not move an inch. I'll be quick and keep an eye on you, okay? I made him look at me when I said it. Okay, Mom. He nodded and went back to watching the replay screen. The concession area was way worse than I thought. It was a total traffic jam at the entrance. People were shoving each other, and the line was barely moving. I kept trying to look back towards our seats, but about 10 minutes in, I couldn't see our road from where I was anymore. I kept reassuring myself that Noah was fine. There were people around him, and he was old enough to take care of himself. But I still felt uneasy. It took me 15 minutes to find my way back with the popcorn and drinks. When I finally got there, my seat was empty. My palms immediately started sweating as I looked around at the rows, the aisle, and the concourse behind me. I shouted his name. The woman right next to our seats looked up. Have you seen my son? He's this tall and he's in the red jersey. Oh, the kid? He went towards the exit tunnel with his dad. The young man said he'd get him some ice cream. My eyes widened and my blood went cold. I spotted them before she could even finish her sentence. Noah was heading straight for the tunnel, holding hands with some guy I didn't recognize. The man was wearing one of those dark blue stadium jackets you see at every merch booth. Instead of running or doing anything suspicious, he was walking like he really was Noah's father. My son was looking up at him, chatting away innocently. I lost it and screamed Noah's name at the top of my lungs. Noah whipped his head around, but the guy didn't even slow down. He gave one quick glance back before dragging Noah into the corridor and picking up the pace as they disappeared. I climbed over the seats in front of me to get there faster. I sprinted down the corridor, through the ramp, and into the dim half-light of the parking structure. My lungs were on fire, and my heart was pounding, but I didn't stop. My son needed me. The noise from the crowd inside the stadium became muffled. Everything got quieter and darker at the same time. They were about 30 feet ahead of me. I screamed Noah's name again, and this time he tried to stop and turn around, but the man yanked his arm and pulled him forward without breaking stride. I caught up to them in the parking garage and grabbed Noah's free arm. I yanked hard. My son started crying, completely freaked out and confused. The guy dug his fingers into Noah's arm, and my son let out a scream that made my skin crawl.